Welcome back. Rick Smith now introduces us to his guest, an author who's an expert in identifying misinformation. Here's Rick.
So latest reports coming out, they're saying that be aware the Chinese are planning to interfere in the elections coming up this year and next. And look, not surprising, the weaponization of information, the dividing us on our fault lines, not a shock. But the question becomes, how do we detect BS? I think my grandfather had an incredible BS detector, but he also didn't have social media constantly hammering insanity and weaponizing the information that he had. How do we fight back? How do we get good information? How do we talk to each other again? And that's why I've asked Andy Norman to come talk with us. Andy is the founder of the Cognitive Immunology Research Collaborative, Circle. He's also the chief catalyst behind the Mental Immunity Project, a collaboration between Circle and the organization Thinking is Power. I know a lot there, but I'm sure Andy's going to explain it. Andy, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here. The short version of what you just said is I like to think about thinking, and like a lot of people trained in philosophy, I try to work out better ways to spot BS and help people master the art of spotting BS.
Well, no, we definitely we need you today, buddy, because look, the reality is we're being inundated in every direction with ideological BS. Some of it good, some of it bad, a lot of it, I believe, completely disingenuous just for clickbaiting. Because hey, as Les Moonves said, Trump may be bad for democracy, but he's good for the bottom line. And there are a lot of people who think that way. Don't care if it's true or not. Don't care what it is. Just as long as you're clicking on it and I make some money, that is a real problem.
Well, there are a lot of people these days who are making their living by fooling people, by generating information that gets people to spend money on things they don't need or to vote for people who don't serve their interests. And if we don't learn how to spot this mis and disinformation, we become suckers of those who use these very powerful media platforms to play with our emotions. So we want to free people from this kind of manipulative influence. And there's some tried and true tricks for this that go back thousands of years. Some of my philosophical forebears were worried about this problem in ancient Greece. But of course, the problem is taking new forms these days, and we need to bring new scientific perspectives to the task as well.
Now, I've had people say, well, how can we stop this misinformation? Because look, I'm sure you know this as well as anyone. AI is going to be a major dividing force for good, maybe, but I think mostly for bad. I mean, I've seen some deep fakes that I expect heavy next year that are just scary good that you go, wow, we've got a moment where, technology is a killer as well as, the human mind through social media. How do we stop some of this? I guess we could shut off all the social media and we could, shut down newspapers and radios. We could do all that. I don't think it's possible.
Right.
But we could figure out maybe how to educate people. Now, you guys have said over at your group that researchers have found the brain has an immune system to fight off misinformation.
That's right.
Explain that.
Yeah. So our bodies evolved over eons in a world just full of infectious microbes, and we had to develop immune systems to survive. And these immune systems do a pretty good job of fighting off disease-bearing bugs, but of course sometimes the bugs win. Sometimes the bugs circumvent our body's defenses and make us sick. Well, it turns out that our minds have been evolving alongside infectious information for probably millions of years, certainly hundreds of thousands, and they've gotten pretty good at spotting bad information. But pretty good isn't good enough.
Yeah, because I was going to say, Andy, I mean, I got to tell you, I was just reading, Adam Kinzinger, the congressman from Illinois statement that, his family sent him a letter, certified letter disowning him because he's fallen out of favor with Sean Hannity. I'm going, wait a second. I don't know that. I don't think the misinformation, gene or the pathogens are helping in that case. And look, I know a lot of people who've bought the red hat stuff, who have cut off family, who have cut off sanity. So I'm hoping that there is a way to fight this off. I just think maybe we've got a lot of people who are suffering from the disease and maybe they don't have the immune system yet.
Well, it turns out we can all develop our mental immune systems the same way that we can strengthen our body's immune system with vaccines and by eating right, getting good enough sleep. You can strengthen your mind's immune system by learning certain habits of mind, by learning how to bring certain attitudes to the table when you're dealing with challenging information. So when somebody comes along and challenges your belief, what do? You freak out and you fight back and you denounce them? Or do you say, let me think about that. Maybe you've got a point. Let me see if I can learn from you. The second attitude will strengthen your mind's immune system over time. The first attitude will allow you to become, will cause you to fall down rabbit holes and get stuck in them. So you need to learn to not to overreact to challenging information and to actually hear different points of view without freaking out. And every skilled thinker for thousands of years has learned how to master this. And there's entire branches of philosophy devoted to how you should handle yourself in these situations. But now it's time to update these sort of ancient philosophical truths, update it with this new science of the mind's immune system, and translate it into practical things people can use, because we're facing a very tough information environment with the internet and of course AI, as you point out.
How do you get there though? Because look, I try. When people come to me with different ideas, I challenge my own beliefs virtually every day. I try and tear my beliefs down every day because of what I do here. Because someone's always going to question what I believe, and I got to defend that. And I think I've done a pretty good job of that over the last 18 years of doing this program. But most people aren't fortunate like I am to have this kind of a gig where I have to do that. Yeah. I look at social media, and virtually everything I see is on has one particular bent to it. So if everything looks like, if you got a hammer and everything looks like a nail, it doesn't matter if it's a screw or a glass dish. It still looks like a hammer or to a nail to most people.
Yeah, just like we need a varied diet for our bodies, we need a varied diet for our minds. Like if you're getting all your information from Fox News, you're going to get manipulated by Fox News. If you're getting all your information from the New York Times, then the New York Times assumptions are going to sneak into your mind and possibly color the way you view things. So you need a varied information diet. You need to talk to people who disagree with you. You need to learn to treat their views as something you can learn from. Because the moment you start to think you have all the answers and everybody else is deluded, that's when you stop learning and your mind becomes sort of closed and rigid.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Andy, and I've been saying lately, and maybe I'm a little too biased, that the Republican Party right now seems, or at least some of them, seem to lie a little differently than they ever did in the past. This is what's being thrown out there and regurgitated time and time and time again. What is it about these conspiracies that grab people?
Yeah, well, I mean, for a while, I think the right wing has learned that they can manipulate minds by manipulating information. And because they've done that so successfully, they just keep doubling down and doubling down and doubling down on the lies. And so the lies get more and more outrageous. I mean, and the Comet ping pong pedophile ring in the basement of a pizza shop is just part of a kind of a much larger QAnon thing, which is just loaded with nonsense. In fact, I like to call it QAnon sense, because that's kind of that stuff does not withstand even a modicum of scrutiny, but it's really seductive stuff, especially if you're feeling desperate. And by the way, we know this about the mind's immune system. The more desperate and alienated you feel, the more prone you are to conspiracy thinking.
No,
And so,
my mind is now going, yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of these folks that I know who are the Q world, these are people who don't have anything better to do but sit on, because I've read some of these things. These are people who need to get lives. But here's the thing. I have an acquaintance who is deep into the Q stuff, and they truly believe they're out there fighting, child sex trafficking. They haven't found it yet, but they believe it's out there. And it's that belief that you just can't shake the believer. You can't. I've found you can't really talk to the believer. So, as someone who thinks the way you do, that we need to fight misinformation, and how do you deal with the believer, or do we just move along?
yeah. So so what the research tells us is that it's much easier to prevent a mind infection than to cure one. So if you can prevent somebody from falling down a rabbit hole, that's a lot easier than trying to haul them out of a rabbit hole. So if we have a limited amount of resources to spend on this, it makes sense to do what's called pre-bunking instead of debunking. So the people who are already in the deep end of QAnon, I don't know, it takes a lot of work to rescue somebody from the QAnon rabbit hole. But if you go out and you teach kids who haven't yet fallen under its spell how to spot the nonsense and how to ignore it, you can save 10 times as many kids.
Right. So we're talking about saving the future. We're just writing those folks off. And I don't disagree with that. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show here with Andy Norman. And he's the founder of the Cognitive Immunology Research Collaborative, Circle, also the chief catalyst behind the Mental Immunity Project. Tell me about that, the Mental Immunity Project. If you want to check out their website, obviously, mentalimmunityproject.org. We'll get links out on social media. Tell me, what is that?
Yeah, so the Circle, or CIRCE, is kind of our institute for pointy-headed scholars who like to think about this stuff. But Mental Immunity Project is our attempt to kind of make this stuff practical for people who can't spend all their time thinking about it. So the Mental Immunity Project, we have a website set up for it, and we basically reduced it to 10 simple lessons that you can learn, each one in about a minute. You can learn each of these 10 fundamental principles, each of which can strengthen your mind's immune system and make you better at spotting BS. I'm not saying it's a magic bullet. I'm not saying 10 minutes is enough. 10 minutes will get you started down this path. But once you learn the basics, it can actually become a virtuous circle. You learn how to ask questions, the right kind of questions. You learn not to get sucked into the kind of over-the-top suspicions that drive, say, flat Earth theory. You learn to distinguish reliable from unreliable information, and it puts you on a path to a life where you're just basically making better decisions left and right.
And now you've got a book titled Mental Immunity as well. It came out a year or two ago. I'm sure that would help, right?
Yeah, that book is the first several chapters are meant for a general audience, and the later chapters are meant for a more scholarly audience. But I do recommend the book, but the website I mentioned, the Mental Immunity Project website, tries to make it just super fun and easy and accessible.
So let me ask you the last line of questioning I've got for you, because I tend to be a little pessimistic on the front of, we're going to be able to hold back the onslaught of AI. You're seeing stories every day that AI is just reinforcing all of the horrible stereotypes and horrible misinformation that's being shoved down our throat. Do you have faith, hope? Do you have any positive thoughts that you can share with me that you think that it's going to be okay? Or because my mind is like, man, trouble on the horizon with all of the people around the world who, Iran and China and Russia and all the people with their misinformation weaponizing our information to pit us against each other. I got real struggles. You?
Two things are true. AI is going to be super disruptive, and it's going to change the information environment in ways that we don't have antibodies for right now. In fact, Lawrence Lessig, a lawyer who fights for the working class and against corruption for years, has just said the AIs are going to create all kinds of misinformation that we don't have cognitive antibodies for. And he's right. And there's serious cause for concern there. It's also true that it's very easy for our fears about these things to spiral out of control, especially because when there's so much that's unknown. I'm going to be meeting just in a couple of days with some of the top thinkers in the world on this. Some of whom think that we ought to be pushing the alarm button, and others who are saying, "Hang on, if you calm your mind down and think this thing through with analogous cases, it may not be as bad as all that. So don't panic yet." I don't quite know where I stand on this. I'm hearing good arguments on both sides, but I know that if I panic, I'm not going to be part of the solution.
No, that's an excellent point. And I know I said that this is the last question, but since you got into this, I got to ask. The Biden administration, Biden just put a new executive order for some new rules on AI.
Yeah.
And look, I think that's about a decade too late. I've been screaming for quite a while to get ahead of technology and, start maybe figuring out how we ease into it. Look, I'm not a Luddite. I don't think we smash the machines. I don't see how we can. I don't think we can restrain this for too long, but there's got to be some parameters where we go, there's got to be some accountability. So do you have any thoughts on the executive order? Is it going to be helpful? Is there a way to restrain this? I know that's a lot, but I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, first of all, hallelujah for the general point you're making. Absolutely, there needs to be accountability. Absolutely, there need to be guidelines and limits. And yes, if Congress had been serving us well, we'd have a well-developed regulatory framework that helps to keep information technology something that enhances our lives instead of tears our nation apart. We've got a lot of catching up to do. I think the Biden administration effort on this, from what I've read, is a very nice start in the right direction. There's a lot more that needs to be done.
And that's the answer. There is a lot more that needs to be done. But Andy Norman, I appreciate you taking some time for us. Hope folks will take a look at the book, Mental Immunity. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at that. Also, check out their website, mentalimmunityproject.org. Andy Norman, I appreciate you taking time for us.